Today I'm talking with my good friend Todd Fedoruk on the first ever episode of the Cote Culture podcast. Todd played 545 NHL games with 6 different NHL teams, most of which were with the Philadelphia Flyers. Todd, aka The Fridge, was one of the toughest players and best fighters in his era, and also one of the funniest guys I had the privilege of playing with. We spent time together in juniors in the Western Hockey League, American Hockey League, and briefly in the NHL. Todd struggled with substance abuse during the early part of his career and is using his story and experiences to teach the younger generation about positive coping mechanisms to manage stressors and outside pressures we all face in life. It's a pleasure to have The Fridge on to share a few stories and laughs, but more importantly, to discuss self-improvement. Yeah, I appreciate you coming down to the city here and battling some traffic, some elements, breaking your glasses, almost getting into a brawl with the parking attendant.
Just coming in hot, man.
But I appreciate it. I think this has been a long time coming. I know we've talked about sitting down and doing this for a while, but I think it's important to do this, for just between us. But I think, sharing stories and sitting down with our fellow brethren and sorting some things out and getting to the bottom of a few things and trying to find better ways, provide better solutions for the players, current, retiring, retired, and just making the world a better place to live in, and using the sports platform to do that. As you know, you've had your fair share of experiences, and your life story is amazing, and I want to get into all that. We go back 20 years, played junior hockey together in the Western Hockey League for a year. I knew you when you were already drafted by the Flyers. You obviously were very, very known for your role. I looked up to you. I respected you. Hartnell and Schultz, both 16-year-old rookies. With me at the time. So I seen you evolve from the sixth. You were 19 at the time, and drafted player to eventually playing in the NHL and having a successful NHL career with a few different teams. But knowing you, play with you for the Philadelphia Phantoms, and then overlap there with the Flyers, but just I lived with you for a summer there. After my first year with the Phantoms, I appreciate that, and always looked up to you as a as a mentor. And so to sit down with you and talk about the real life shit and where you were and in your evolution and where you are today is going to be some powerful stuff. So I want to dig in deep, and as deep as you want to go with it, and share some stories and successes and some failures and everything in between, and how you've kind of turned it around and found some awesome treatment options and some tools to manage your daily grind. So if you want to dive in a little bit, going back to your early life and early part of your career, and just let her buck. And
Well, I know, and you know what, when you talk, thanks for the intro, Cote. That's I'm honored just to be here. I think we are a brethren, and I like the word brethren, and I find that, it's 10 years I've been out of the game now. You look at back, even yourself, we've been out for a little bit, and man, it's a big adjustment. It's a monumental adjustment. Reinventing yourself is a very hard thing to do, and I think just the ability for us to be so connected, just through technology, social network and stuff, that's the big difference. The communication is wide open amongst players, and especially when they're done. I think before our time, there's a little bit of, when you're done, you are done. You literally drop off the face of the map of the hockey world, and you're back in the hometown, either digging ditches, working in the oil patch, or on the farm.
That's right.
That's the reality for a generation before us. And I think now, I wouldn't want to call it as much as a movement, but there's a group of guys that have slowly been cultivating this community of healing for guys of a common bond, guys that have been through what we've been through. And I'm not just talking about our style of play, I'm talking about the game, the professional lifestyle you start to living and being formed to live at 15 years old, being pulled from your home. It's just a system. It tends to expose us players to a lot of negative things as well as positive things. It's just the nature of the beast. You're going to go that high, you got to deal with things up there at that level. So I think that now there is a movement. There's guys like you, and speaking is the main thing.
It is.
Having a place where a person is protected enough to speak, it's almost impossible to actually create with somebody. But I think with the common bonds that we have, and being from that lifestyle, understanding it, going through things, That's the thing that really makes other players connect. And I'm on full board for this whole movement. You see it happening with guys like McGrattan out west in Calgary. And there's just, people are paying attention to it. And the one thing about hockey, we have been able to handle things throughout history internally. We heal from internally. That's the one thing that I think separates us as a group is you're not going to be able to, any outside influence is never going to come into that locker room and be able to do and manifest what I think that group has done, that 750. And there's history of it. I've been a part of it. I've seen the healing internally say, look, guys, we've got a problem here. We've got to deal with this. They handle it. They don't let this rinks come in. They don't let the coaches, GMs, nobody comes in. They do it internally. They hold each other accountable to a man. And that's one thing I never want to see leave this game, and I don't think it is. I just think it's being kind of brought back in because, you know what, you hear about things are in the media and stuff like that. Some articles coming out about some of the lifestyle choices and some of the things that are happening in the league. So we can get into that a little bit later because there's some current issues too. But back to the start, where it all started for us, man. Wow, that was Prince Albert, Riley Cote. I was with you, Hartnell, and Nikki Schultz. How about that? We all ended up going to Philly.
I know. It's interesting how it works.
It is. I remember you first coming to Philly too, and the change. Because I remember you at 16. I remember it was you, Hartnell, and Schultz, and you guys were the three studs. And when I mean studs, like Riley Cote was not the tattied madman that I knew, right? The persona you had to create and do in order to do that role. I understand that aspect. That was not the kid that I thought you would have grew up to be as a player. Mm-hmm. And it showed me how different paths can go and how it tends to come down to the person, whether or not, if I need a chance to make it, it's going to be doing this.
Right.
Some guys, I think, very few guys are willing to make the choices you and I both made in order to make it to the NHL.
Yeah, no.
So kudos to you for that.
Yeah, thanks. No,
because I thought you were going to be a 50-goal scorer coming down the left wing, clapper.
I wish I would have been saved my body and made paychecks a little bit nicer, but the reality is the skill level is so high. Hartsey was a 16-year-old rookie as well. He's drafted in the first round in the Western League and ended up being a first-round high pick. But looking at the guys getting signed and drafted, a lot of goals, just a lot of points, and then what I identify with was a lot of guys still getting called up with penalty minutes, and there was still a role for that. So I think Kevin McClelland, our head coach there back in the day, certainly helped. Plant seeds. I didn't identify with it at the time. Having guys like you around. Craig Brunel was a couple other tough guys that played for the Raiders back in the day. But he's slowly but surely kind of seen the landscape of like what I really needed to do to give myself a standing chance, because I realized I wasn't as high offensive as I thought I was. Even put up like 50 points in the Western League. It's like nothing compared to a 110 point scorer. And then trying to crack a top 6 or even a top 9 of a lineup and being realistic with that, and then getting your fourth line minutes back in the day when the fourth line minutes were really fourth line minutes, and trying to create an identity with that amount of ice time. It was like I just was like all in. I was like, this is the only way I know is to put my head down, take on this role. I've been around some fighters before. I lived with one in junior, Grant McNeil. There's still a presence for that role in the NHL, and all these minor leagues obviously supported it. Yeah. So that was it, man. I just signed up and said I'm all in, and
Well, I think attest to you, man. The role, I think, in its dying years, and I'll say dying. I know that it's gone. It's maybe starting to come back a little bit now. It's just kind of in another way, maybe a little less violent way, but it's still there. It's still an aggressive way. It's still an intimidation factor. I think the role is still there, but you came in, and it's the type of guy that it is. In those last years, it wasn't necessarily how tough you were, if you were the best. And I'm not saying that you weren't one of the top guys, man. It was the type of guy, yes, it was the attitude, it was the coachability, it was the ability to play defense, it was the ability to be a hockey player first, but understand that I'm going to respond without hesitation. That was the element that I think certain guys had, response without hesitation. It was just almost instinctual and almost like a reflex. When a guy needs to be protected or there's certain parts being disrespected of your team and what you stand for, guys were there to answer the call. And I think you were one of those guys. I like to take a lot of pride in being like there was no thought, it was just react, do. And I think there was a couple other guys, but those and ultimate guys in the locker room. You know what? It comes
Yeah,
down
that's
to
it.
love, man.
It does.
It does. You got like I had to love some guys that I necessarily didn't think were good guys. I didn't think every guy on my team was a good guy, but
Sure.
I was able to check their egos as well as mine at the door, and then protect them as a teammate and a player. And it was about comfort too, right? It was about their
Yeah,
comfort level.
the respect level for sure.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like if you're going to war for somebody, there has to be that respect level, right? You got someone's back, and it's
Yeah.
hard for most people to really understand, you know, the real true energy behind a team, especially a team that has the ability to actually fight for each other. And you know, it's powerful when you see a guy going to bat for you, and you know, he doesn't just have your back on the ice, but you know, out and about and like at bar
Yeah.
scenes or wherever else. It's like those guys are always got their guys'
Yeah.
back, and then,
They're just built a certain way.
Yeah.
They're going to be there. They're going to be there. It doesn't matter where you are.
Yeah.
That's why we get along with veterans, you know, the Army guys. We do training with
Selfless,
them. We talk with those guys all the time. Police, fire, first responders. I've noticed that more in my time done playing is how much I like those guys. I've
Yeah.
liked them before, but the hero element in those guys, it should be coveted and saved for those guys that put their lives on the line. But I do like, and I do take a sense of pride in having some little bit of a bond with those guys.
yeah.
I do like that. I
do,
think we are built to the same cloth.
I agree,
We're
yeah.
willing to put ourselves in harm's
Well,
way.
that's it. Yeah, I mean, it's not for everybody, right? I mean, to
That's
put
why there was
the
only one or
body-
two.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, the warriors, right? The warrior mentality is real, and it is not for everybody. I think, you know, it's certainly an attitude and a mentality. But you know, there's also the, you know, as great as, you know, the league is and playing pro sports is. There's obviously a dark side. There's a dark side to everything, right? I mean, it doesn't matter what business you're in, really. But I think it's maybe more magnified in a, you know, in a group setting of 23 man roster and a team, and you know, you're together and you see things a little bit more upfront and personal. But you know, the dark side of sports is substance abuse, and you know, this false belief of your identity. You know, there's an egocentric part to sports that, you know, obviously it's a tool. Ego is to lean on this because it helps you become a better athlete, but there's a fine line where the ego starts controlling and it becomes your own worst enemy. And I think, you know, what comes with, you know, playing hard and, you know, fighting for your team, you know, leads into the party scene and coping mechanisms that aren't very sustainable. And I think, you know, you lived it. I lived it in my own version. How, you know, managing stress and, you know, the coping mechanisms that we used are essentially outdated and, you know, very toxic to lifestyle. Maybe you want to talk about that world for you, and you know, and how you were able to, you know, figure out how to manage your stressors and your own, you know, your personal demons or whatever you want to call them, because there's a good way and there's a bad way, and I think a lot of guys lean on the destructive substances.
And you know what? Part of it's like, you don't want to say the culture is bad. The culture is not bad in hockey. I don't necessarily think. I mean, I'm 10 years removed, but from my experience, the culture is actually what kept me, you know, on the straight and narrow. It was my teammates as well as, you know, the compassion of somebody within the organization that was able to introduce me to another way, right? Like I went down the road of a lot of cocaine use, full-blown alcoholism, addiction. Like, I'm that guy, right? I was probably predetermined for that because I think I was well on my road before the NHL. So I'm not one of those guys that's saying that the lifestyle is the reason, right? The lifestyle of becoming a professional athlete. But I'm telling you, living that lifestyle is definitely you're at a higher risk, because you got to understand. I understand it's a disease, and I understand in some ways it's genetic, and in some ways it's not. There's no markers in my family. Mine was excess, more, go, get more. That's what it was. What is this going to do for me when I needed to do something for me?
Right.
That's what it was about for me.
Yeah.
And I crossed that line and wasn't able to get help, and you know, it was you know, recovery-based programs, and I had to go away for a bit and really understand who I was, right, and what was going on with me, and where did it all start, and how do I live with this moving forward.
Yeah, well, you know that's a good point, because what I noticed it wasn't so much pro hockey that enabled these behaviors. It was maybe just the culture of sports. I don't even want to throw just hockey in that category, but I know when I moved away from home at 16, I'd never really been in this, like, say, party setting, you know what I mean? All of a sudden there's parties every night, you know what I mean? There's like, guys are going out on weekends after games, and you're a team, so you're drinking more, you're partying more. And I think the guys that say struggled with excess partying in juniors generally like land up leading, have some sort of substance abuse problem down the road. So even to your point, I remember you being one of the go-to guys, when it was time to set up a party. I mean, Friggy was right there in the mix. You were 19, I was 16. So, but you see that in junior hockey. I don't know if it's changed now, but like there was a ton of guys,
Jeez,
I
wonder how many guys I sent down the wrong path if I was setting up the parties, Cote.
Oh man, but you think about that, and back then it was like, these guys are just beauties, and it was like cool or normal to be a booze
how
can
fool
and
we
spitting,
were.
You know what I mean? And chewing all over yourself and spitting, and looking like an absolute wreck. And that was.
Is that how you thought of me?
I loved you, brother. But at the moment.
No, I hear you.
Because that was when I started, drinking too much and partying too much too, and it wasn't you weren't the cause of that. It was the culture, or the environment, and my own personal choice, obviously. But the attitude towards it was like, no big deal. It's like, that's just normal to.
It was
get
funny.
shit-faced and
Yeah, it
pass
was
out
funny.
And barf all over the place.
Parents weren't around. The
Storytelling
freedom.
but like to me, like looking back, and I don't want to sound like a hypocrite, even though it's just maybe a change of philosophy and viewing that like you can still have those elements of camaraderie and team building and unitedness and that whole.
We've evolved
without getting absolutely canned, blackout drunk, when you're not only just like, abusing the substance itself, but really, affecting your brain, your health, your mental health in a really negative fashion. So for like sustainability as an athlete, it's terrible for you versus, we're going to get into, cannabis-based products or something a little bit more mindful, where you essentially accomplish the same thing: some good conversation with teammates, some laughs,
what actually has what carries
all
more weight? What carries more weight? What carries more weight? Is it the night you blow out? Because the whole thing is, and again, the professional athlete is a man, woman, whatever you want to call them, of excess, and they're built and they enjoy performing at excess. So winning for them is everything. It was to me, still is. The ability to win and be in an environment to win, I still relish it. I love it. I crave it. I look for it in life. Right? I hope that never leaves me. I like that. There's a sidebar to that, is that with high risks, high everything, you have all of those other things that are high risk too. You have the tendency to fall off that edge, or you're walking life on edge, you can fall off. I was one of those guys that fell off, right? So you get into these group settings, you're a young kid, you got 16-year-old, 15-year-old kids with 19, 20-year-old kids. Social lubricant is what comes to mind. Alcohol, the social lubricant. What is it going to do? It's going to help you bond. That's really where that whole thing started. You're in a group of excess. What's going to happen? You're going to go to excess with it, right? That's what happened. We went through it in junior. I mean, I got sent home in junior on a 12-hour bus ride because I went to one of the games with a couple pops in my belt, and you can smell beer on my breath.
Wow.
Yeah, me and one of the other guys who was first round draft pick and stuff. But that's what we did. We were stupid kids, right? Now, give me $1 million, send me to the NHL. It's even worse now. The culture wasn't there so much, but it's always been part of that social lubricant, right? And you know what? It kind of puts up a fake realness to actually bonding. It's kind of a fake way.
It is.
It's not real. There's not real truth to it.
I agree.
You know what I mean? You put down those barriers. See, that's drinking to me was about becoming social.
Right.
Because I didn't like it. Right? I didn't want to know. I didn't want my teammates to know me. I wanted the ability just to talk to them. So that's why I drank. So everybody has. It opens you up a little bit. It's that social lubricant. Well, it took it too far, obviously, because now I no longer drink. Period. Just can't. It's no longer an option anymore. But I understand that, and I think the players do have a camaraderie that, and I alluded to it earlier, that we do heal from within. But what you're alluding to is something that's new in the body of players today, and it's communication. These guys have different problems now, and they're exposed to everything, so they have more truth in their lives. They can seek out the findings. They can go to Google it.
That's it.
It's a powerful tool.
It is. Yeah, and I think.
And athletes and people that are high octane earners and what, they are driven to find and seek out knowledge to better themselves.
Yeah, no, absolutely. The amount of resources that are invested in players from the team's perspective, on top of their own personal agenda, is what they're investing in themselves during the off season and resources. It's unbelievable. I think the challenge today is weaning through the shit. I mean, there's so much information, a lot of misinformation. Where back in the day was a lack of information, and now it's like everyone's got their opinion. Everyone's a pro. Everyone's a guru.
I have a theory to this. I have a theory to this, and this is part of that movement. The only guys that these guys are going to listen to are former players or players of. That's just the way it is. Sorry, society. That's the way it is. Yeah. And you know why? Is because we have a history of handling things internally. Mm-hmm. We have a history of that. You're not going to be able to understand the things that go on in that locker room. Yeah. You know, and nor should you want to. Right. But internally, they need a place to be able to heal and grow and deal with the things that they need to deal with. From somebody that's been there and done it and gone through it, or can at least guide them. And it's not a therapy thing. We have professionals for that. Right. But I've talked to them. Yeah. No, it don't work. It's The best conversations I had were at 3 a.m. when a guy was at the end of my bed trying to keep me awake so he could talk a little bit. Right. Hey man, I just want to go to bed. Oh, let's just keep talking. Yeah. Those are the best bonding moments. You know, those are the best things that I remember from my career that really helped me later in life. And I go back to them. I recall them. Yeah. You know, it's my teammates, my brothers, the guys that I bled for, you know, cried with, you know, all that stuff. Those are the guys that still to this day, I have a need to want to help them. Still talk to Parksy, you. We got Carcillo out there. Yep. Got to keep him under the wing a little bit, you know?
Yeah, you know, you got to love where his heart's at.
We got to look out for each other, brother.
That's it, because we're trying to, at the end of the day, like...
We're trying to figure it out.
We're trying to figure it out just as much as anybody, but I think, you know, there's a group of us that I feel like
It's growing too, Goats.
We've lived it. We've experienced these new ways of managing, you know, certain elements of stress management and pain management and, you know, just general recovery and well-being that you can't help but want to share this with the world. You know, not just the hockey community, but like with the world, because it's all relative. I mean, it's a better way of living, a better way of recovering, a better way of sleeping. I mean, all these things added up is just a better version of you. And if you're in the business of performance, which we all are, it doesn't matter if you're on the ice or in the office 9 to 5. I mean, it's all about production and performing. And, you know, mental health. I mean, I think, you know, you look at the opioid crisis or the alcohol crisis that we talk about as substance abuse, but you got a mental health crisis. And, you know, to your point there is like we have all these resources, we have all these amazing tools, but we're disconnected, and we're disconnected to things that are real, truth, our identity, you know, outside of the ego, which is our job essentially. And you see why there's, you know, some high net worth people killing themselves, or, you know, slowly killing themselves with substance abuse. And like how can that be? It's like the unhappiness lies within, you know, the mental health component, because they're not loving themselves. You know, there's no connection to themselves, and that's part of connecting with other people and connection into nature and food and all these things that matter as a human, you know, balance in this world. So I think that one more than ever. And then you have these platforms like, you know, Instagram and Facebook, and everyone's judging and everyone's getting offended at what people are saying when you're putting yourself out there. So there's, you know, there needs to be this level of self-confidence built within through love and personal growth, and we're not just a shell of what our job is. And I think there's a shallowness that sports brings to these people, to its players, that when they evolve out of the game, they struggle. They struggle with who they are, because it's like you just said it earlier. You got to recreate yourself. You know, you got to find a new identity. But part of that new identity is really tapping into who you really are as a human being, which you really weren't that before, because you were, you know, your ego was so overridden.
You needed to become whatever the group of 20 needed you to be at that particular moment. Right. And that you fell within, let's call it 4 lines. If you want to sort it into categories, you got your high earners, or your top producers, goal scorers in your top 2 lines. You got your working guys on the bottom 4, right? You might have grown up your whole life being a top 1 guy, right? All the way to the NHL. Then you get there. Hey, we're going to turn you into your 3rd line center. You're going to shut down guy. Yeah. Whoa, what?
Yeah, I know, right?
Coots is a perfect experience.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
You know,
100-point.
But how he handled it was even better.
Oh man, yeah.
Just bided, waited his time, understood where he was going to be, and his real personality, who he really is allowed to come out. Yeah. just because it's strong,
Yep.
right? I don't think every athlete has that.
No.
I think we're built to be insecure because I'm always measuring up to the next guy beside me.
Yeah, that's it.
And
yeah.
if you don't have that little bit of insecurity or fear, I don't know if it's insecurity. It's just like, is this guy going to be better than me?
Yeah.
If you don't have that, you're never going to make it.
Absolutely. I think there's a positive component to that. It's just like identifying with your competition, but focusing on the road and keeping your eyes straight versus being distracted by the guy next to you and then taking away from your own personal growth and development. I think the distraction to me is the concentration, the focus on yourself versus let them do what they're going to do. But you know what I mean? But don't be worried about the guy next to you, because if you're doing what you're supposed to be doing, you'll be fine. The self-doubt and have a bad game and the coach pulls you in and gives you a pee-pee slap and all these different things, affect someone's self-confidence. But it's like,
I never looked at it like that.
How do you bounce back from that? Okay, well, it's adversity. It's a bump in the road. Well, you're a highly paid athlete and it's just part of the business. Well, yeah, it is part of the business, but some guys respond to it in a positive fashion and some guys really do get affected by it, where it affects their performance. And then eventually their performance, it turns into a trade or a send down to the minor leagues. And then all of a sudden it's like, they have a hard time, responding to that adversity. And I think that's just meant with mental toughness, including mental skills, but that ultimately affects, mental health.
Yeah.
The guys are coping. Like, now, how are you coping with this?
I'm not able to do it. I'm not good enough. What's wrong with me?
Self-talk.
What's wrong with me?
Yeah. And that's it.
Why doesn't he see I'm better than that? Why doesn't he see that's the struggle that goes on in the athlete's mind, I believe. And constantly.
It's constantly, and I think that just translates to the common man. It's just it's self-talk.
Yeah.
It's, a positive mental attitude, depending on what situation you're in. It doesn't matter what situation you're in. It's like you just have to respond in a positive fashion. I think the guys that go the other way are generally the guys that make their own bed versus didn't play tonight. I haven't played the last 10 games. I got scratched for my last year. I don't know how many games in a row. It was like in the 20s with Labby. But not that it really amounted to a whole
and you
lot,
just got to smile and take it and keep moving forward, right?
Looks like it doesn't affect
it's hard
you at all.
to do though.
And then when I was put on waivers, instead of sending me down, they actually kept me on the roster. But it was all an attitude. An attitude that I carried. I could have been, sour grapes and showed that. I would have been, Homer would have called me up and sent me to the minors.
And then you start thinking about this. What if I did do that? What if I was a prick? What if I was not happy with just being there? What if I made a stink?
Well, I think that's a reflection of someone's
that's
character,
the dynamic.
How you go about it. I mean, you can ruffle feathers in a positive way. You can ruffle feathers in a negative way.
Yeah.
I guess I just never wanted to be.
I was a bull in a china shop
the guy that was showing disrespect. Being honest with my ability and where I stood on a hockey team. I think that would be a poor show of character if I went in there and demanded more when I knew I wasn't deserving of more. You know what I mean? So,
but you still question. I question that stuff too, but I would never do it. Yeah. You know what I mean? That's where I drew the line. But still, I still battle those at home. What if I did it? Because you always want to believe that you can be better than what everyone else thinks you are within your 100%. Group. You want to drive to be better, right? And I liked what you said about that, about looking internally to better yourselves. Because I was a guy that, and there's probably arguments for both, but I was a guy that needed someone to compete with in a positive way. I had a guy, Jesse Bullreese was that guy for me. And it was almost our own craziness. You were doing karate with us one year. Yeah. We weren't allowed to do karate anymore because we started back spinning kicks. Yeah, right. We were doing jump kicks at each other's heads, trying to kill each other. Yeah. And our Sabanim, Master Fred Scott, who's one of the greatest guys still to this day, he's like, I can't let you guys do that. I've been training guys for 20 years.
Kind of injuries.
But I needed that. I relished in that. And I took pride in hey, we're up here on a competitive level. It might not mean anything, but we're going to be doing more work than these guys. I relished in that environment.
100%.
But I could see.
No, but I agree with you in the terms of actually competing against the guy in the gym or
And if they're positive, some guys aren't like that. They want to see you fail and they relish on that
that's
too.
That's it. I mean, I think I was talking more in the.
They need you to fail so they can have success.
In the world of, like during the game, like hoping the guy you're competing against has a bad shift, and you're wasting your energy worrying about other guys.
Should have got that puck out, man.
Yeah.
Have a seat.
Overcritical about their performance. You should just be focusing on yourself. I think, that healthy competition, don't get me wrong, is extremely valuable and pushes guys. And I was in the same situation, with Ben Eager and Josh Gratton and
even myself,
and
man. Even myself. There was 4 or 5 of us.
Yeah, exactly. So
here's the thing, Cote. You might not have known this. I knew it. Every single one of us could have done the job with the big boys that year. Every single one, 5 of us could have done the job.
I know.
Why I got to, why you got to, who knows? All of us could have done it. The guys went on to play somewhere else, but
exactly.
We were all built the same way.
Yeah.
I like that, man. That was a good group of guys.
Interesting dynamic that year.
That was the year we won it. We should talk about that.
The Calder Cup, 04-05. So I actually had it here, remembering my first game that year with you beside me on the bench. So you see, Homer signed you a week or 2 into the season. I think we were playing 5 games. Was your first game that season? The lockout
November.
Year? And we're in the Spectrum.
October.
Why don't you tell
We were line mates too.
I was sitting right beside you, man.
Beauty line mates. I don't know who our centerman was, but
Ben Stafford.
Oh yeah, it was. It was Harvard or grad. Smart kid, Ben Stafford. Yeah. So I was sitting on this is the first game too, and this is lockout year. So I was in the league enough. I think I'd played 200 games or so. So it was like I got a little bit of riff from some of the veteran guys. Say, well, you're kind of going down to play. You're a bit of a scab, man. We're holding out. I was like, I'm not good enough to not play.
Yeah, right.
Keith Primo,
Yeah.
Like you're a 25 goal scorer. Like I've been a rookie since I came in, and it's my 6th year in the league. So I'm gonna go down and play a bit, right? So that was the decision-making process, and plus they gave me an opportunity. I don't know. Like, look at the roster.
Absolutely.
Like me, you, Eags, Gratz. Chief was our coach. You had Richie, Carter, and even though they came at the end, how about those guys? When they came in,
Sharp,
we were just like,
you're Freddie Meyer.
Take us to the promised land.
Yeah.
Carts, Richie,
right?
Like it was awesome. Yeah,
Maybe.
Awesome. Those guys come in and do the job. But how about that? The guys in the minors coming in like from junior. I want to talk Richie and winning that year. Coming in from junior, and how do you think they feel? 19, 20 years old, and we were like first place team.
Right.
But we were a good team.
We
embraced those guys in the first game.
Oh,
it's like let's go. That's a winning team, man. I love that stuff.
That
year
led the playoffs in scoring cards.
Yeah.
Amazing.
It was awesome. Good guys, group, but I learned a lot that year about the team and really about a lot about everything.
Yeah.
About how believing is really what it's all about.
Yeah.
Loving the man beside you.
That was the best experience in hockey that I've had. That
like
moment.
I was so humble at the end, like because I wanted it so bad that I never came in to play. My mind or our personalities never came in. You're detached and you're just part of something that's going forward no matter what. It was tremendous. And it was in Philadelphia when we won it.
Yeah.
And Johnny Stevens, I remember, I don't know if you got a letter, but he sent letters to guys, and I got a letter from him about just something that he said, just, you're a man that command respect in the most important moment of your life. Like things like that.
Yeah.
Just little things like that. Good leadership, and then Craig Ruby.
Yeah.
Chief.
Oh, yeah, the whole...
Just work.
Top to bottom was, right? It was simple.
Just work harder.
Really, that just shows you that year is just how simple hockey really is. Like we had nobody in the top 20 scoring on our team.
No.
We were hard worker. We had 5 legit tough guys.
Yeah.
We just had the balance of team chemistry, scoring, checking, goaltending.
And there were some guys on that team were very abrasive personalities. Like I'm not going to name names, but we know.
Yeah.
And they bought in. That's when you knew it was special. Like the guy that you think is going to be that cancer, who is probably and could be on some other teams, wasn't that shit. He bought in, and that was pretty cool, man. And you know what? You do remember those moments for the rest of your life.
Yeah.
Winning a championship is a pretty cool thing.
Yeah, and just like that energy behind the team, I thought was nothing that I've ever felt before. I won a championship in the Central Hockey League. Not that it was, the same level or anything, but the energy behind that team seemed to be on a whole other level. Just the storyline, but. why don't you talk to us about the first game that year with the Phantoms?
Oh, that's what we were going. I totally lost track. Get me back on track. You're going to have to edit that whole thing out.
No, that's good.
Did you notice when I lost it, though? That happens a lot. I know what it's from, but that happens a lot.
Yeah, I do the same thing.
Okay, so back on track here. I'm sitting on the bench, and Cote, it was Freddie Meyer. He was in, and we were on the power play. We were on the power play, so it wasn't penalty kill. I'm sitting on the bench. First off, I got in a fight with Konopka first shift too. Like, I'm like, okay, I'm gonna come down and play, and no fighting, and Nopper, let's go, getting a scrap with him, and I'm on the bench, and sure enough, we're on the power play. I look, and Riley's in front of me on the bench, and I'm looking around him. He's looking around the guy in front of him to see if we're gonna keep the puck in, right? Freddie goes to the board, puts his skate on the board, and it goes right off of his toe. I remember seeing his toe. And I see the puck ramp right off of it. And I'm looking around Coates, right? And we both start moving back. It's coming like right towards Coates. We both start moving back. He moves a little quicker than I did. And wham, right in the eyebrow.
Oh,
hard in the eyebrow. And I sit down instantly. And Coates, like, you gotta understand, Riley Cote is single-handedly, and I played on 6 teams, 10 years in the league. He's the most intense person I have ever played hockey with. And I've played with a lot of men. So I don't know if you want to take that, but he is the most intense. It's one thing I loved about him. And he's looking at me, and I'm on the bench, and I just got a clapper in the head. I'm in pain. And he's like, Fridge, did that just hit you right in the head? And I'm like, yeah, man. And he's like, holy shit, Jimmy! He's yelling for the trainer. Good old boy. He's looking out for his teammate, yelling down the bench for the trainer. Jimmy comes down because Jimmy was he's the NHL trainer, but he wasn't there. And he's like, Jimmy! He says it again. Fedoruk, I think he just got hit right in the head with the puck. Get down here. So I go back into, there's more. I go back into the room, and I take my bucket off, and he's obviously seen it, right? And there was a hole in my head. Like there was a you could see the puck broke the sinus cavity, so it's thinner skull there, but you could see the dent. And I'm back in the room, and it was right at the end of the period when I got hit. I'm back in the room, sitting on the trainer's table, and then in comes Cote. I got all the doctors around me, and Cote comes in. Tatted arms, just intense, all his gear off, just his bottom on. Fridge, are you all right? That hit you right in the head, man. Just worried as buck for me. And I'm like, Coates, I'm good. I'm going to the doctor right now. Oh my man. God. That's what I remember from that whole moment was Coates being there for me the whole time. Man. It was like he was holding my hand through it. You gotta think, man, I was in so much pain. Sitting on the bench, like, what bad luck. First game, hey, let's go play some hockey. Right. Clapper in the head. You're out for 6 weeks I was out. First
I remember the sound of it is why I was like...
Was that your helmet or your head?
I was like, Jesus.
That's exactly what it sounded. It crushes.
Oh, man. It was, the sound is ingrained in my DNA now. I mean, I remember like it was yesterday, honestly. It's like PTSD. It was... The sound, the emotion of putting your head down and knowing that I know I probably
it was a slow motion, wasn't it?
Properly, probably should have calmed down a little bit, but I didn't know how bad it was until after. I mean, that was
you just needed to know.
Oh man, I felt terrible, man. It was tough.
No, it was good. I was so happy
to get introduced back to the American hockey.
Right.
First game in the lockout season, but
those things happen though. But those are the things I remember, man.
Oh yeah, no, that was tough. So that was your first facial reconstruction, or would you already have?
No, that was the second one. So the first one was Eric Cairns, and that was in 2003. And I caught him with a good one early, and then he caught me. Eric Cairns has got hands like the front of an '87 Chevy.
Long,
the lanky and long guys are the worst. I don't know what it is. It's like they have extra snap in their punch. Yeah. They shouldn't. You look at them and you're like, there's no way that guy should be tough, and he's just like.
Yeah. If he catches you at the end of the pole, then that's when
yeah, ping.
I know exactly what you mean there.
Long and lanky guys.
So he was the first.
He was the first guy, and that broke on this side, on the left side of my face. And that was a good shot, and it broke the zygomatic arch, and I had three plates put on that side, and then 3 plates put in
from the puck.
From the puck, yeah.
And then what year was it? Bugard. It was a couple years later.
That was 2006, 2007, I think.
And then more plates than that one.
Yeah, that was the big one. That was the one where I probably really should have never fought again.
Really?
Because it wasn't necessarily like would the face break again. It was like what's going to happen when it does. Because it wasn't going to take as hard of a shot.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's, you know, I had 3 plates put in, but the way that the cheekbone broke is it broke out the orbital, completely blew it out. So there was no other supporting bone except a little piece of fragment that was my cheekbone. So that was built up with mesh, with a titanium mesh that went and became my orbital floor, and that goes back into my head, and then 3 plates on the outside just holding and propping up the cheekbone back in place. Doctors did a phenomenal job, but I mean, when he said my career was over to my wife and to, you know, the team, he was probably right from a fighting perspective, because I was never the same after that, and you shouldn't be.
No, yeah.
Shouldn't be. If you are, you're way too self-destructive.
Right.
And that's not a good behavior to have. But you know what? It goes back to the pride and the persona and the ego. I needed to get back on that horse because I believed that showing the willingness with that injuries would, you know, they would like that. Yeah. That's my belief. Sure. I still kind of do believe that. I still do take some. Too, right? I still do take some sort of pride that I did get back on the horse and did it.
Absolutely.
Like that's another thing too. But was it the smartest thing to do? Probably no, from a safety perspective. But from a pride, not even pride. It's the right kind of pride. From a willingness perspective, yeah, I take pride in that. And not a lot of guys would. A lot of guys would think that that's crazy, that's stupid. But I had a family to take care of. I had kids to feed.
Of course.
I had to play hockey, and I had to get paid for it. So I had to show them that I was still willing.
Absolutely.
Because that was my MO, that was my strength. So
I heard you, man.
And you know what? I think that they understood that, and I still made. I mean, I got my first $1 million contract after the injury.
Right. Yeah. No. It's
You know, so like
that perspective.
Exactly, and those things happen in the game that not many people in the media will ever know about.
Yeah.
The game does, in ways, heal from within, but they also do take care of each other. If the guys are there that want help, that's the one thing that a lot of people miss, is that the resources are there for players when they're done.
Yep.
And now more so than ever, we're actually kind of being proactive about that. Me and you doing this right now.
Right.
You know, other guys around the league. Scotty Parker's doing stuff out west.
Mm-hmm.
You got guys down in LA doing stuff. Brent Myers, you know, McGrattan. You know, these guys are getting involved and taking it upon themselves. And you know what? I don't need a piece of paper telling me that I'm approved to give you this service.
Right.
You know,
well, that's it.
I don't need a piece of paper or a certification. Now, I'm not going to give therapy. Yeah. I'm not going to tell you do this. I'm not going to prescribe them things. I'm just going to be there for them. And I think that a guy like me or a guy like you, protecting their interests over a physician will outweigh them more, because we've already done it.
Yeah.
So if it does come down the road where a guy does need help, I'd want somebody in my roommate holding my hand to take me to that first doctor. Yeah. That's what it's really about. And I think that having that environment in the locker room is important, even in our community.
Oh man, yeah, the support system. I think that's ingrained in culture. It's almost just like bottle things up and don't talk about it. You know, I think there's something extremely healthy about, you know, sharing emotions and sharing, you know, personal vulnerabilities and with your teammates and your friends and your family, to get it out there, to find solutions. But you bottle it up and you let it build. I mean, I think
there's a breaking point.
Expresses itself in a negative fashion, you know, at some point. I mean, whether it's today, tomorrow, or next week. But you know, to your point of your story there, I think that the biggest thing for people to really understand when it comes to the support system is that you said earlier, with like trusting guys that have been there and done that versus having an outside source come in and play that springboard, where, you know, you have your therapist, you have your medical professionals, all that stuff, but there's something, you know, sacred about sharing something that's sitting on your heart with your teammates, and taking that outside the locker room to have that support system, whether you're still playing or you're retired. I think a lot of guys go into the shell after all their resources, all their support system is essentially dismantled, and now they're on their own. It's like, who can I call up and will he care? Will he
Yeah.
care about my problem? But I think the more I was one of those guys, bottle things up, bury my head and do it. And I think what I've learned is went from expressing through violence and anger and frustration into creativity and communication and speaking and sharing stories. And I think they're both vehicles
parallels,
of expression.
They're parallels. You have, and I believe this, and there's you know what? There's nobody to tell me this. This is what I experienced. I have an imbalance in a need to protect the other man or the other hockey player, right?
Right.
And I needed to do it, and I got very well at doing it in a violent way. So there's tendencies and there's attributes that come with violence, right? Rage, intimidation. The act of the violence is the symptom of everything you're trying to portray as that player in that position, right? You're trying to portray, don't do this or this will happen, and it will happen, right? In order for the other guys to play. Now, when you do that, when you're done, how do I 180 that? How do I turn that on its head? Because I can't go around trying to sell something, beating the crap out of somebody.
That's it.
And the thing is that as rage and anger intensive as it was, the 180 of those feelings is expressed in what we do now. I believe that.
Yeah.
So, if that is my foundation of belief, how far can I go? If I'm willing to do those acts of violence on other men with all the righteous and good intentions and have to win,
right?
I can do it the other way.
Absolutely,
and I can go just as intense. And the thing that I like about it that makes me I like to take a little bit of ego from this and say that I'm unique, is that because I was willing to do that, I have more in the tank to go the other way.
Absolutely.
And I believe that. Doesn't it give you encouragement? And I think people understand that too.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Just redirecting your energy and expressing in a different, more sustainable fashion through love instead of fear and anger.
Yes.
You know what I mean? And through creativity and all these positive and healing and just helping guys.
Isn't that amazing we're talking about this? Like coming from where we came from.
It is amazing because, these types of conversations really aren't...
well, they're not looked upon now, but we were actually the harborers of all those things.
Yep.
Like, that's why we were protective of it in the locker room. Because we did love each other, right? We had to care about each other. And we protected those things as well.
Yep.
We protected the sanctity of the locker room. Anybody messed with that, we were the ones that dealt with that.
Yeah. And you know what, then going back to your point there, you could have retired from playing after that injury, and life is a risk, right? No matter what you do, whatever choice you make, everything is a risk to some degree, right? And I think there's something to be said about both sides of that fence. You could say, well, scientifically, I probably should have pulled the plug because, after so and so many brain injuries, it's like, according to the new versions of the concussion protocols, you probably should have pulled the plug.
Yeah.
The reality was that you probably weren't going to get tagged like you did by Bugard, again. Or,
that's hard to do.
It's hard to recreate those types of knockouts where they're the worst case scenario in a fight. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But knowing that you were a tough guy and you've been fighting for probably 15 years at that point, like it just really landed up being more to get back on the horse and regain that confidence and not. Again, showing your teammates that you're weak. You know what I mean? There's that element of like, I'm a warrior, and I'm, you know what I mean? If I get off the horse...
I wanted them to be like, holy...
Wow, this
guy's nuts, man. Why is he doing this?
Yeah.
I had guys on the ice saying, what are you doing, man? I don't want to be the guy to end your career.
Yeah.
Literally, guys saying... I'd line up to him and say, let's go.
Yeah.
And guys would be like, you sure, man? Like, we all know. We all know. It's like punching an aluminum can. I'm not going to shotgun your head right now.
I know.
But they still did though. They still went at me because they understood. You know what I mean? They probably didn't throw a right.
Yeah, right.
Maybe threw some slaps in the back of the head, but yeah, man. I you know what?
Yeah, I hear you, and that's just the attitude, the warrior mentality. And someone would argue, well, it's just like it's stupidity. But I think that's not for them to judge and knowing your story, where you come from, and really what it's like to be in that role. You know what I mean? I should have probably retired way before I did. The amount of punches I took, and being honest with it.
Yeah.
But I took a different direction. Where I was like, substance abuse was kind of sneaking in there, and I said, this is my exit strategy. I'm getting out of the game to find myself, to heal, to get away from the party, to find these alternative healing mechanisms that can not just change my life, but can help change many other people's lives, using this intelligence and this knowledge that I gained, to really bring back into the sports community and specifically the hockey room.
Yeah.
And help these guys out because, again, like these guys, what you learn is everyone's struggling. Doesn't matter how much money you have. Doesn't matter how life.
That's what life is.
To be going well for you. there's always a struggle. There's always
Yeah.
anxiety and stressors, and generally those lead to to coping mechanisms that are not sustainable, sleeping issues, substance abuse. But I think the biggest thing I've learned is just like how to manage my stress and anxiety and how to direct that and express that in a positive fashion. I think taking that warrior mentality, just like you said, and converting the energy and redirecting the mission into something positive is essentially what we're trying to do here.
Yeah, it's on the flip side. It's rather than inflicting the pain, it's dealing with taking away or dealing with that pain, managing through that pain, fighting through that pain.
Yeah. Because pain is inevitable. I mean, it's a human condition.
Oh, and it's the only thing anything ever gets done.
Yeah.
Pain and suffering is how people change. Pain and suffering is what people forces people to get up off their ass and do something.
That's it.
To take that away from people, you're walking a fine line, turning everyone into a robot. The ability to suffer on the human is everything.
That's part of the growth.
It's what sparked me to you get to a point. It's either do something about it or die.
Right, that's it.
And that's the ultimate truth. To me,
Grow
it
or
was
die.
do something or die, and I did something.
Yeah.
But that's what it is. It's you have to go through struggle in order to get anything good out of it, and it's in that struggle that anything good comes.
I agree, and I think
That's the truth. That's the truth. Everybody knows that.
It is the truth. And I think our job is just to, I don't want to say minimize the struggle, maybe change the struggle is always going to be there, but I think we can eliminate some of these issues or try to eliminate some of these issues where the pain and suffering leads down such a destructive path where again, like the opioid crisis. If a guy is struggling with physical pain from an injury or a surgery, instead of maybe introducing him to synthetic heroin, maybe we could be a little bit more intelligent about what we're giving them.
Put a guy in there for him to talk to.
Right, exactly that, or cannabis or a cannabinoid-based product, which is non-addictive. It's a high anti-inflammatory. All these positive healing mechanisms without running the risk of an opioid dependency, which we don't need to see the devil face to face before we see the light all the time.
Exactly.
You and I.
Yeah, I don't need to go through hell. I don't need to go through hell to get to heaven.
Exactly. We could maybe bypass that, or maybe just touch down on the flame a little bit.
Yeah.
Instead of being buried in it.
Or pull that guy off when he knows hey, whoa, you look like me going down that slide.
Yeah, exactly. But I do agree with you. Like pain and suffering does promote growth, spiritual growth, personal development. But it also puts people down too. Some people just can't cope with it.
Yeah.
And then they throw their hands up, and it's like now you become the victim, and there's no accountability because now you're not pouring in the effort to become a better person.
Exactly.
Or grow spiritually and pour into the things that make you a better, strong, fundamental human being. And, I think those conversations are what we're trying to do is just like bring the power back to the individual. Put the power back into people, or you're in control. I understand the politics in sports and the politics in life. Nothing's fair about it.
Yeah.
But your attitude is the one thing that you can control, good, bad, or indifferent.
Yeah, how you approach things.
And how you approach it, and looking at every situation as a blessing. Maybe that didn't work out. It sounds like it's a negative thing here and now, and you move on and do bigger and better things somewhere else. You know what I mean? It's like it's always two ways to do.
Layers of the onion, right? Like a guy goes through something, and going through it, right, is another layer on the onion, right? You go through something again, you just keep building up a repertoire of challenges and struggles. Anything good comes through that.
Yep.
You look at all the things over time in history, all the things that are done good. Edison, what's his famous saying? I made 1,000 mistakes before I invented the light bulb.
Yeah, Thomas Edison.
I mean, it's just common knowledge,
right.
But we've just seemed to forget it for some reason. And I think a lot of what happens in sports needs to stay in sports because on a societal level, what goes on in the rink, what goes on the fields, what goes on in between two sports is confrontation in a managed situation, in a managed environment. Yep. But it's confrontation, and it's problem, it's solution, and it's play out, and it's done with. There's something to say about that for everybody in society. There's something to say about two teams or two people getting together, hashing it out, banging it out in a violent way in some ways, but in a safe place as entertainment. There's something therapeutic about that. And I think that one thing is missing from just, you look at youth sports, right? The competition era, right? Everybody gets a participation. What are you really taking from those kids? You're taking the ability to struggle in a safe environment right? And what's really what it is. You lose, you lose.
That's right.
You don't like it, do you?
No.
Okay, feel it, drink it in. Let's work harder so we don't have to win.
Yep.
That's being taken even from youth sports. I could go
I
do
hear you,
backflips
man.
over it.
It bothers me so much too, because we almost look at failure as like we focus so much on perfection and fail to talk about failure when failure is a huge part of growth. I mean, like you said, like you look at all the successful people on the planet, they failed hundreds of times, and they will still continue to fail.
I don't want people losing the risk to take the risk to fail.
That's it.
I don't want people to lose that risk.
Fear-based, fear-based mentality where you want to play it safe, and we don't want to fail at anything because it makes us uncomfortable. But that's what helps us grow.
Yeah.
And I'm a big promoter of failing often and failing early, and you know what I mean. And children, like to your point of the participation, trophies and stuff like that. Again, if you lose and when you're 5 years old, you know that feeling early on. No one likes to lose.
Mm-hmm. No.
But it creates that hunger, just like you said. It generates that energy to want to come back and do better. But if you show up and everyone wins, what do you learn?
What are you going there for? What are you going there for? To hang out with your friends?
Yeah, and understanding and coming out of a place of love to try and find solutions. But I tell you what, people have gotten so off topic and essentially hit the bullseye in the wrong target with this modern life, and and there's no respect, just for themselves, but let alone other people and other people's space, no common courtesy. Where some, I just say the old school me would have been, geez, I just feel like this, just smack this guy.
Yeah.
But I try not to think like that because it's not sustainable. That's coming out of a place of anger and you know what I mean, and
it's
frustration.
probably part of what created what we're in.
Yeah, but I think
there has to be merit to some of it.
Yeah, I know.
Maybe not in excess, but there's a balance.
Yeah,
and it still has to be expressed and experienced by the kids and people in all walks of life. See, there's a reason why there's so many emotions, because we're supposed to feel them all.
Right, and it's like
just trying to minimize some of them. There's something else it's gonna go off balance somewhere else.
Yep.
It's all about what I've learned in my experience. It's just yin and the yang. Like so many. Why do they keep saying it?
Yeah, right. Yeah.
It's probably a truth. It's probably infallible truth that these things are actually real. What you feed is what you get, and you know what I mean? It makes sense to me, just in my experience. All I've wanted in life is balance.
Right.
It's all I've ever, and I didn't know. I didn't know it was actually balance. That's what I wanted to create. I wanted to create where I was winning every day. Right. That's impossible. Set your standards, not set your standards lower, but you know what I mean?
Be more realistic.
Be more realistic.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And look for an even keel and a nice kind of calm place to be. That's really what I wanted to achieve in life. And I found it through talking.
Right.
Through speaking, through educating myself, taking someone else's point of view and absorbing it and really taking a look at it, not just taking it for what it is on its face. Looking at their point of view. I gotta tell you, guys like you've been an advocate for the CBD and the cannabis, and I know the backstory behind it. It's coming from a place of love. It's coming from a place of truth. It's family. Right. So I understand where that's coming from for you, and I understand the passion behind it too, and not only the experience, but here's the other thing. Even in my own life, I was able to open myself up to looking at some of that stuff. CBD has been something that's changed my life.
Yeah.
It's changed my life. It's got me off some pharmaceuticals that, I've been trying to take, constantly changing them, the amounts or the dosages, the type of drug, antidepressants, whatever it may be. And I don't have a need to even go through that gamut anymore.
Amazing.
It's amazing to me. I lost 60 pounds.
Yeah,
I eat better, I sleep better. And I understand that it's about the similar type of effect as a cup of coffee,
right?
Or a smoke, you know what I mean? Or nicotine, if you like that. Like I love nicotine. I do. I love nicotine. I love caffeine. Yeah, I mean, you just stopped for 30 days, didn't you?
Yeah.
I was gonna do no November, but there's Movember for that too.
There you go.
No November, but yeah, you know what? I like caffeine and nicotine, but I tell you, man, CBD did something for me.
Yeah, man.
You know,
I'm so happy to hear that because I know.
And
yeah.
I was obviously with my background in sobriety, I was a hypocrite.
Right.
Anything coming from that is bad. Like I bought it, but you know what? It's a plant.
Yeah,
You know what I
and it's a
mean?
plant, and I think
I don't think people consider it a drug anymore.
no.
And the CBD part of it, and the other things that they're gonna find coming out of that. I mean, obviously you know way more than me, but the things that you put out there is what educated me.
Yeah,
And without knowledge, you can't make informed decisions.
yeah,
And the knowledge that's out there is real knowledge. And here's the thing, my wife has a background in cellular biology and science, so she looked into it as well. She knows how to research, and she has seen the differences, and my family has seen the differences. So at the end of the day, whatever goes on outside my home, I could give. I really don't
Yeah.
care, because that's what it's all about. It's about family, it's about home, you know, my inner circle of friends. That's really where I live and where I stay. And if those people are okay with me, the rest of the world is too.
right.
So that's what it was really all about for me, and that really
Beautiful.
made a change for me in my life. And I tell you, I was a hypocrite. You know, I wasn't a believer, but
Well, I think it's just not understanding fully because a lot of these substance abuse programs really
And it doesn't work for everybody.
tailor their recovery programs to throwing all substances into this pool when they're not really describing the difference between the substances. They'll throw heroin and cannabis and alcohol into the same category, but God knows they're not the same type of substances. You know, two of those three have fatal withdrawal symptoms, where the other one has no addictive.
just think of what
physical
alcohol
effect.
does in nature.
Oh man,
It's a solvent.
it pulls spirit out of things.
Exactly. It's
Plants,
exactly what it
humans,
does.
and perfectly legal. So I think those analogies when they don't explain the difference and they lump them all together is too simple of a way of thinking. You know what I mean? You look at the cannabis plant, notoriously throughout time has been used as an exit drug, getting
Yeah.
people off heroin,
Yeah.
these opium dens and alcohol, and it's a gateway to wellness. It's the kind of the complete
Yes.
opposite to what we've been told.
I like that.
But
And that's truth. It is a gateway to illness. If it promotes balance and everything about addiction and all those things is in balance.
that's what it is.
That's all anything ever is. It's just something's not working right, and it's off.
Yeah.
And it's the cannabinoids, CBD especially, promotes balance.
That's it.
That's from everything that I've read about it, and the
That's
more
what it
studies
does.
that
It
they're
brings
coming out.
homeostasis to the body, and it calms the nervous system. And to your point about the balance and the finding peace, I think once you find the balance, you find that inner peace where because you're able to
Think from a
understand
place,
energy
yeah.
and you're able to remain calm,
In tune.
in tune because you're using a coping mechanism, which would be CBD, non-intoxicating, to help with those daily anxieties and help bring the inflammation level down. And then when it's time to sleep, encourage a really nice, proper, restful
Yeah.
night's sleep to wake up in the morning and you feel fresh.
Yeah.
Versus, versus being all over the place. And I was once like this, and I'll still consume a little bit of caffeine, but not really identifying with the energy of caffeine and some of these other things where it's like, increase my anxious energy. Ooh,
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, now I'm like,
I like that energy.
but then I felt like I had to like calm it with some
Yeah.
cannabis or whatever. You know what I mean?
Okay,
Where it's
okay.
like, bringing that balance back in. Because it's
Yeah.
like, you can induce your own hypertension by too much caffeine. And before games, like, imagine I would have, I'm
Oh
not sure
my
if I would have
God!
done
No,
the
let's
same.
not even get into
Yeah,
that.
I
It's
know,
still
right?
bad. I don't want to look at that. Let's not open that yet.
Yeah, it's
I'm not
not
ready
bad.
to go there.
Yeah.
We'll say that
that's that's a whole
for
nother
session
whole
two.
nother,
Session two.
conversation.
Caffeine and nicotine.
But being mindful of the energy of the substance that you're putting into
Right.
your body, whether it's food, so sugar, refined sugar, carbohydrates is an energy that it satisfies the palate immediately, right?
Instant gratification.
instant
It turns on
gratification.
systems in our
Our
systems.
brain is fired
right?
up. But like long term, it has negative side effects that come along with it. You know what I mean? It's inflammatory. Your body's acidic. Land up generating some weight gain,
Oh, yeah.
heart disease, whatever lands up coming with it. But understanding that energy versus whole foods, and then you substitute alcohol with water and the type of energy that it's giving to your body is from a cellular level and how it's impacting your brain versus dehydrating
Why
that.
did they let alcohol be the one? It is the worst one.
It is, but I think prohibition doesn't work no matter what. So to go back and say, well, we're going to outlaw, alcohol and we're going to legalize cannabis. I don't think that's realistic. I think these drugs have always existed on
Yeah.
the planet. The ability to make alcohol, Some of these lab-created drugs are, synthetic heroin. I mean, that's a whole other league of destruction.
Jesus, it's terrible.
But having that balance, I always say, like, the Industrial Revolution comes around. You outlaw cannabis as a medicine, but also as an industrial resource for textiles and fuel and all this whole bit. But now we have this amazing imbalance in our environment and in public health, right? You go from this natural world to this industrialized world, and then this industrialized medicine, artificial foods. So now people are extremely imbalanced. Where now we don't even have the option legally on a federal level to use cannabis. Hemp we can, but cannabis as a whole is still federally illegal in the U.S. Above 0.3% THC to use that as medicine or as a tool to combat pain, anxiety.
I've always been fascinated with the endocannabinoid system that we actually have in our bodies already. Like we have receptors we're predetermined to ingest this.
Yeah.
For
we also have
reason.
opioid receptors, so there's understanding.
Oh, okay. So we have opioid receptors.
But I think the way humans were designed to ingest opium,
but it's not a full system,
was with respect, as a true medicine, and not just you got a broken toe, here, have some heroin. You know what I mean? I think there's a milder way to approach pain than going straight to the hardest one. I think an opioid serves its purpose in hospital settings for emergencies.
I agree.
Someone gets their arm ripped off.
Well,
in a
no,
car
it
accident.
is. I just cut my finger off the other day.
Yeah,
let's get into that.
There's a time and a place for that.
There is a time and place. Yeah,
because
it's a wonderful drug for those things.
But I think they shouldn't leave the hospital setting. Once you scatter them on the streets, and you know what I mean, and people get these.
And the norm is 30 when you need 1.
Right.
You don't even need. You don't need any to go home. They have stuff that's.
I just think that
it's a dangerous drug, man.
It's a dangerous path to go down. But to your point of the receptors, so I think naturally we've evolved with plants, right? We've evolved naturally with plants, and these plants have been our allies. But I think once you industrialize them and you put them through the pharmaceutical model, you make a synthetic version. So now everybody in their brother is taking
about scale.
Is a scale.
Yeah.
You wouldn't just randomly accidentally pop into an opium den.
Yeah.
Unless you chose to go there.
What do you think about, you hear more and more about them opening up these free use spaces to get guys or people off of heroin that are using. I don't know. I don't even know how to approach that.
Yeah. So
I don't know what's that going to do.
Here's my philosophy on this. You look at Portugal. They decriminalized all drugs over 10 years ago.
Yeah.
What happens? You treat substance abuse and addiction as a public health issue versus a criminality issue. You don't put people in private prison systems when they have a drug addiction. You get them help. So when you decriminalize something, you're not making it legal, but you take the crime out of it. So when people have an issue with, instead of threatening them, okay, we're going to pick you up off the street and put you in jail.
There's a different perception in the public view.
They treat it like an illness. Yeah. So we'll get them help. So what happens is drug abuse and addiction goes down, violent crime and gang-related crime goes down because you essentially...
It's a bold move.
You take out the crime. Once you make anything illegal, you bring crime into it. So if we outlawed coffee beans today and say, guess what? It causes hypertension, it causes anxiety and all these negative side effects. We're going to ban coffee beans. Overnight, you're going to have a new class of criminal.
You're not going to go on a coffee thing kick now and be like, coffee's bad.
No,
I'm going to hold on to coffee. I read your stuff, Cote.
I'm just saying it as an argument of once you make anything illegal, you bring crime into it. So we're trying to it's about harm reduction. So we're trying to make the world a better place, provide the solutions for the people, and remove the violence that the underground creates through prohibition. Right. I mean, so
there's always been a business around
talking
prohibition.
about decriminalizing all drugs.
Right.
And I'm a huge proponent, and it's not endorsing drug use. Saying okay,
no, it's not. Yeah,
nuts.
I think it's the messaging and how you put that out there. Because I don't know. I'd have to see a trial and error.
Portugal is a perfect example. They've been doing it for over 10 years. Everything's dropped. Violent crimes, drug addiction, substance abuse, everything is dropped because of it. Because it's no longer the forbidden fruit. We're no longer incarcerating for drug use. We're getting them, and we're changing lives for the better.
Yeah.
People go through rough patches of their life. They develop an addiction and substance abuse. Well, that shouldn't be the end of their lives. Throw them in jail and let them rot away.
Yeah, especially when it's easier.
Treatment.
Yeah, exactly. Especially when it's 3 days you could be full blown. It does not take much to become addicted and becoming dependent on substances.
Yeah, and
It
these
does not take much because the chemicals, the drugs are getting stronger.
Right, and these safe injection sites aren't saying, "Hey, just come over here and let's have a heroin party." It's bringing people into an environment where we can actually support them. So
Yeah.
maybe you are giving them some needles they're going to do it anyways, getting that off the street. But all of a sudden, there's a support group there, and now we can maybe talk about some things, and maybe you can save a few lives through that type of program. But
Yeah.
nothing could be
Not
worse.
not trying. Yeah, not trying is
nothing could
worse.
be worse than what we have right now.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, prohibition does not work. We have a heroin crisis on our hands. How can that be if
Yeah.
we're doing things right?
Yeah. We're not.
Clearly, humans have evolved with substances, mind-altering substances.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, there's
it's
stuff with
up
that
to
too.
the human being to be able to control their own daily behaviors and decisions and navigating this world in a respectful manner. That's
Right.
what our job is to do. Yes, we do get off path sometimes, but to make a system that's more supportive of, again, not endorsing but
And
supportive of
not
struggles.
not counterintuitive to getting the person back on track. And
That's it.
it is counterintuitive now to getting that person back on track. It's trying and saying rather than actually doing it. That's a bit bold move. Like I see of all the pushback, like depending on where you put these places, like you put them in like a suburban area, like because that's where it is. Like that's what people don't understand. People think safe injection site it's going to go in the dirtiest part of the city. No, it's going into your neighborhood center. It's going into your fire department because the epidemic in opioids is in suburban America. It's the middle class. It's the masses.
Yeah.
You know, it's touched that. So I like that idea, and I like that there's actually Portugal's actually been doing it.
Yeah,
But that's what we're looking at. We're talking about that now.
Yeah.
It just shows you where society's at. And
Yeah. Well, how is it any different really than methadone clinics? You have plop a methadone clinic in the middle of Canada, virtually anywhere.
Well,
It's
yeah,
like
it's exact
a
same thing.
businessman suit and tie rolling up and taking a shot of methadone, which is
That's
arguably just as
turn
addictive
those
as
into those spots.
as heroin. So you're basically bringing customers to these, and all types of people into these clinics. I think the model just needs to be absolutely squashed and rebuilt.
Yeah.
And I think when you have a tool like cannabis or CBD specifically, which is non-intoxicating, these other
What about the
cannabinoids.
psilocybin? They're looking at
Oh my God.
LSD and
I mean, again, going back to the natural world, like the psilocybin mushroom is co-evolved with mankind since the start of
yeah,
time.
right. There's something to that.
Think about that.
There's
I
something
mean,
to that if it's scrolling around in the
There's
neighborhood.
there's actually a lot of talk about human consciousness evolving with mushrooms. Even for anybody that's had a psychedelic experience, is that
Okay.
it opens up these neural pathways. It opens up consciousness. You're able to think more clearly, almost tap into some ancient intelligence and creative intelligence that Paul Stamets he talks about on Joe Rogan. It's the stone.
I like that guy,
the
Rogan. He's good.
Stoned ape hypothesis, basically saying that humans have co-evolved with mushrooms.
Wait, what was the guy's name?
It's Paul Stamets. He's like the mushroom guru of the planet. Like
Paul Stamets.
Yeah, sits on with Joe Rogan and talks about this, this stoned ape hypothesis, where it essentially says that humans, consciousness is a byproduct of eating psychedelics.
Accidentally eating. Oh, I can.
Well, accidentally,
yeah.
but it's like these hardy mushrooms that grow, and there's like over 210 different species that roam this planet. So mushrooms are essentially the fruiting body of mycelium, the underground network of
Wow.
mushrooms, and they pop up everywhere.
Yeah,
and
they
if
do.
you know the timing of it, you can forage these things, and so they're saying, over time, who knows how long of a time that humans have,
So the argument is that
human consciousness has evolved
yes,
through
human
mushrooms.
human consciousness
psychedelic
is
Ayahuasca, mescaline,
mescaline.
these plants that have been being used by shamans.
So the ability to become self-aware has been,
through the intelligence of the mycelium network.
Wow.
And you think about it, to the common man, it sounds absolutely crazy.
Of course it
It's
does.
like,
But
we were always this intelligent, or
I always look at things from I'm not a skeptic anymore. I used to be a skeptic of everything. I look at things like, this is a reality now. Look at it, and if it is, then it's not, and if it is, it is.
Right.
It's not like
It's not-
that's kind of far fetched.
Right.
It's like I want to look. I want to look at
I
this.
want to explore this.
Yeah, this is neat.
And if you've ever had a psilocybin experience, which I know you have,
Yeah,
to
I
some
have.
degree back in your day, it was probably a little bit more of a recreational fashion and probably some distractions.
That was a
around
lot over an extended period of time.
But
Yeah.
from my own personal experiences, like you tap into a different dimension of thinking, a different level of consciousness, where you're able to assimilate information and make some sense of the world and feeling this energy of love and connection and all these positive things that, like, in a small amount of time, 4 or 5 hours, you're coming out of this with like major amounts of information and data, downloaded from, it seems like centuries, you know what I mean? And it's like fundamental truths that no one can dispute, even though science constantly tries to disprove these things that we already know.
Isn't that the beauty about truth? Isn't that the beauty about truth?
Can't
though?
hide
You
it.
just know. You
You
just know it.
It's ingrained in
It's
us.
a great place to stand on.
Tapping into it and listening, and the psilocybin, going into this micro meditation where you're listening to universal vibrations, but
Right.
it's a whole other league of healing and brain
You
health.
got some passion behind it, man. I can see it. You got some energy into it. That's good, man.
Because that's the next big thing. I've seen the way cannabis.
Well, there's doing studies too, right? There's a
Johns
big
Hopkins University.
Yeah, they're not
ton of money
not a small system, man. And Johns Hopkins is probably one of the top.
Yeah, and there's been
Aside
more
from
research
Penn
on psilocybin than there has been on cannabis in the U.S.
Now, when the smart kids start looking at it, it's something real.
Oh, yeah.
That's good.
So that's the direction it's going. It's probably 5-10 years away before we get to where we are with cannabis.
Here we go back full circle in struggle, right?
Right.
We go back to the struggle. Look, society's struggling right now.
Right.
Things are born out of struggle. Now we're looking at psilocybin. Maybe this is it. You know what I mean? Maybe this is the thing that is born out of the struggle that we're faced right now. To a solution. Right? I mean, depression is such a common term. It's like, hey, did you drink some water this morning? Yeah, I did. Did you have depression? Yeah, I do. Anxiety. Like, it's depression, anxiety. What else is there? Substance abuse.
Right, it all connects.
It's just kind of everybody's associated to it.
Yeah,
and everybody says, oh yeah, I'm on it. Like, it's a common thing. Like having a cup of, where do you drink your coffee? Where do you get your coffee from? What, Starbucks or Dunkin' Donuts? What are you taking for antidepressants?
Right.
Paxil or Zoloft? Like, it shouldn't be something that comes up in conversation. That is, right?
Because it's so prevalent.
It's prevalent.
I mean,
we've been through it. That's why I think we're passionate. Most of this talk has been around that, because we've been through those things and we see that people, on the majority, are going through it now. Yeah. And there's a better way to deal with it, man. It's about talking and getting things out there.
Yeah. I just want to wrap up on one thought. Just building off that is just like the mental health component to all this, and just like how can anybody, whether you're a player or a retired player or just an average, 9 to 5 or whatever you want to call your profession, it doesn't matter, doesn't discriminate. But how can we be more empowered to cope and to manage these inevitables in life and do it in a sustainable fashion where we don't have to go veer off the path so much, where we can kind of keep it on the straight and narrow, find that balance on a daily basis, and grow, because it's all about growing. It's not about, okay, I got my 4 years of education, I'm done learning. Yeah, I'm done growing now, but it's like, it's constant. We're always fighting something.
Well, how's that going to work out for guys like us? We're done playing when we're 30. Right. I didn't go to college.
It's a whole nother life.
Because I didn't do that, I'm not going to have a good life now? That's what we deal with. No way.
Yeah.
Reinvent yourself. I hear that.
But as far as where you've come from and where you are today, if there's any advice that you could throw out there as far as managing the daily grind, keeping things in order, keeping your thoughts healthy, keeping your daily behaviors positive. I understand those are pretty subjective and broad terms, but maybe from your experience, things that have worked for you, things that haven't worked for you, and where your headspace has been at when you've attacked these types of things.
It's all, for me, it's a daily reprieve. I mean, I wake up a different man every day. I'm never the same guy every day. I want to make sure that I don't do anything the day before that hurt anybody, and I try not to act in a way that's going to hurt anybody tomorrow, right? That's something, there's things that I live by. Under any and all circumstances, I don't get loaded anymore. Mm-hmm. Under any and all circumstances. I was shown that I have a problem, and I had to be shown. I was one of those guys that went back out and tried to figure it out on my own and realized I had a problem. And today it's a daily reprieve. Today I talk openly about it. Yeah. I am not anonymous. I suffer with something that 1 in 3 people is directly or indirectly associated with in substance abuse and behavioral health. It's So looking at it from a daily struggle, understanding things are always going to be coming down the pipe, and then talking about it, that's been the main thing, is openly talking about it. And with my family, I have a 15-year-old son I can now talk to about things.
Yeah, it's powerful.
You know, how do you imprint on a son when you have things going on that he's not supposed to be taking into from his father, right? If there's behaviors, I need to talk him through those behaviors. Like, this is not normal.
Right.
This is from this, and this. And he understands those things, talking about it. If I don't talk about those things, imagine the environment he's growing up in.
Right, no.
It's selfish to not talk about it.
I agree.
You're looking inward. So I do that more.
It's beautiful.
It's hard to do it though. Because
tough.
people judge you, and that we're in a society that's very judgmental, and I had to get past that, where I don't care about your approval anymore.
Right.
I don't care. I don't need it.
That's
The only approval I need is the man upstairs. I call my
it.
higher power and my lovely wife. If I piss her off, I'm in trouble.
Yeah.
That's it. And I try to do it on a daily basis. And I make mistakes all the time.
Yeah.
And I surround myself
All of us.
with people like yourself, Coates.
Yeah.
I believe that there's a network of us coming together
Mm-hmm.
organically. It's not happening because we're all calling each other and just trying to start this army.
Right.
This is happening organically. I think some of those guys, even Biz and
Yeah.
and Whitey, those guys are starting to, even their talks and what they're talking about on the podcast, it starts getting this realm. Katie Strange, The Athletic.
Yeah.
There's platforms that are now starting to tend to lead towards, these kids need help, you know, in our game, and these athletes need help. We want to continue looking up to these athletes, right,
Mm-hmm.
from society. So let's get in there and help them. That's really where my goal is now. It's like we're on a mission. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah.
Protect the guys that we wanted to protect. I get to protect the guys. If this goes right, all of the guys that did what we did, we're protecting our guys in the same way we did when we played.
That's it.
How beautiful is that? That's
Yeah.
all I ever want to do. That's all I ever want to do.
Yeah.
All I ever wanted to do. Protect you, right? And, you know, if we keep doing this, we're going to be doing that no matter what.
Yeah.
So that's what I look at. That's the way I approach things now. Try to do the next right thing.
Yeah. Well said. Yeah, the communication component is huge. That's one of the big things that I've focused on. I don't think I was a great communicator in my old life. You know, I was one of those guys that bottled things up. You know, my parents were just, you know, work hard and, you know what I mean, just like battle through. I think the culture of hockey kind of breeds that, but there's something to be said about being honest, open, and I think, you know, from my work in the cannabis space, the more vulnerable that I was, and the more I talked about it, the more people came up to me and shared with me how much they were hurting.
It was like your
You know what I
only
mean? It was
weapon. Like you got to understand, and for everybody listening out there, you were a lone soul standing on that island.
Right.
And I have to give you a lot of respect and a lot of credit for that, because honestly, I wouldn't do it.
Yeah.
I would not do it. I stand for a lot of things, but that was something. And then when I found out more, kudos to you, man, because you. And I don't want to feed your ego, but there was a start, and everything starts somewhere. But now the acceptability and from the league, they don't look at it as a drug anymore.
No.
People don't look at it as a drug
No.
anymore. You know, I think you were one of those guys on the forefront to start those things. That's where risk happens. That's where change happens, is the guys that are out there on the forefront. So I think you got to take a little bit of credit for that, man, because there's a lot of guys I know that would not stand on that island. And
Sure.
you did. You did. And you may not have been the guy that could have done it, but you've got guys around you, you know, that have been building up because they've listened to you and they've watched you. So
Yeah.
I'm one of them, man. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
So
I appreciate
I was
that.
able to look at some of the things that you're doing, and I'm a better person for it.
Yeah, well, I appreciate that. I think, you know, from my own personal experience with cannabis and hemp, and then, you know, seeing the science to kind of validate what I was feeling, you know, inside myself, gave me the confidence to speak out about it. And I think, you know, once you can kind of connect science, these anecdotal stories, there's a million stories out there.
Yeah.
But we need, you know, true science in this country. God knows that. That's when I just felt comfortable enough to be like, you know, screw what people think. I'm gonna run into adversity no matter what.
Yeah.
But I may as well run into it, you know, believing in something, standing for something,
Yeah.
and going up against the grain, because it is. I mean, everything I was doing and still doing is up against
That's
the
how
grain.
that's how you make your mark in this world and
That's
become
it.
happy.
Yeah.
That's where I think happiness is going
Yep.
something you believe in.
That's it. And I found peace. I've been lucky to leave the game relatively unscathed. But, you know, these years of, you know, pouring in energy to heal and find, you know, better solutions. But I just want to share this message with the people, and talk with like-minded people like yourself, and
Absolutely.
spread the good word, because as God knows, we all need this. You know what I mean? It is therapy, communicating,
Yeah.
writing, speaking.
When you see
getting
the
it out there
guys,
is
like
powerful.
when you see the guys and you talk to the guys, like I have conversations myself where even on this show I've gone through conversations where I lose my train of thought, and I know why.
Mhm.
I know why. And I've had conversations, like it takes a little bit longer for me to, but I've had guys where I've been talking to, they lose their train of thought in like 6 seconds,
Yeah.
7 seconds. And I'm constantly reminding them of what they're talking to me about. Guys that I played with, guys that I'm pretty close with.
Right.
Constantly. This happens all the time. I don't want that for them.
No.
You know what I mean? So
Sure.
there's a level of passion in us in this movement, in players and former players. Even, it's not just us. It's not the guys that are out. This is coming from inside.
Sure.
We don't do things nothing outside of the hockey world will affect what happens inside the hockey world.
Yeah.
And people, I think, need to understand that. You can write what you want to write. Nothing will affect change except the dynamic of that locker.
I agree.
And it'll grow. That's a beautiful thing about sports too.
Yeah. That support system. Well said, brother.